Well, welcome, Priscilla Clarkson. Thank you so much for joining us. This is part of our ACSM Distinguished Leaders interview process. I've done about 40 now.
Wow.
So I tried to get you last year. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you're located now, what you're doing, and a little bit of your background.
Okay. I'm at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and I currently serve as Dean of the Honors College there.
Oh.
But I still maintain my laboratory. I have a postdoc and 5 doctoral students so that we continue our research as well as I do my administrative work.
I didn't know that you were pulled into administration.
I was,
Russ Pate just told me he's
yeah.
in the provost's office now.
Yeah,
So.
I was called to serve.
Okay.
This was an interesting possibility. I had been asked to apply for the Dean of the Honors College, and I had declined. I didn't want to be an administrator.
Right.
I love my lab, I love my
Yeah.
research. And then one of the search committee firms called me. And sometimes it's hard to get them off the phone. So I said, look, if the search fails, call me. Well, the search failed. They called me, the provost called me, and I felt I had to step up to the plate and help the university. So this is my 3rd year of doing that.
So is the honors program it's for undergrad students?
Yes,
or?
it's for undergrads. It's the Honors College. There are 2 honors type programs. One is honors programs, and many colleges have an honors program.
Within their own.
It could either be within their own department or it could be centrally located.
Okay.
But the Honors College is always centrally located and it's generally a 4-year program. So there are fewer honors colleges in the country.
So undergrads would not have an individual major then? They would just be in the college?
No, they have a major as well.
They do?
Everyone has, well, except our students usually have 2, 3, or even 4 majors.
Okay. And that's why they're in the honors college?
That's why they're in the Honors College.
Yeah.
Next year will be our 10th anniversary. The Honors College at UMass Amherst was started by the Board of Higher Education of Massachusetts and supported by the legislature, so that a major flagship public university would have a program that would serve students in the Commonwealth.
Oh, nice. It's good to have that kind of
Yes.
support. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your lab and how long you've been there and what kind of research you guys have been doing.
Okay, sure. Well, I started, actually my Ph.D. was in motor control.
And where were you? And
I
who
was
did you work with?
I was at the University of Massachusetts.
Okay.
And what happened is my last year in the doctoral program, just as I began my dissertation research, one of the faculty members, D. Eddington from Michigan,
I know him very well. Yeah.
he left. It was August, I think.
I didn't know this.
He left.
Okay.
And they needed somebody to teach his classes. And I had been assisting him with classes, so I took over and began teaching his classes as a TA salary.
Were you guys in Boyden then?
Yeah, we were in Boyden, and I taught his Introduction to Exercise Science class. And then the position opened up, and I applied for it, and I stayed. So.
Fantastic.
And then I had always wanted to be in the more molecular and cellular area. I had actually come from, my undergraduate major was zoology at UMass Amherst, and I had wanted to be a veterinarian. And my first year, they brought the pre-vet, pre-med majors into a room, and they interviewed us, and they said to me, I see you want to be pre-vet. And I said, yes. And they said, well, women don't get into veterinary school. So maybe you should, think of something else. Well, I didn't know what else to think of, so I just stayed a zoology major because I was good at it.
And what year was that, Priscilla?
That was in 1965.
Okay.
So I stayed as a zoology major and graduated. Didn't know what to do. Went home and got a job at a local hospital as an assistant. I said, I like school.
Yeah.
I want to go back to school. I don't like this here. So I went back into a program in marine science at UMass Amherst again. So I got a master's in marine science, but I didn't understand then how graduate school worked, I didn't understand that you work with a major professor and you work on their research. I really thought I would go back and get a degree and become Jacques Cousteau. But obviously that didn't happen, and they asked me, well, what are you interested in? I said, well, animal behavior. I said, all right, well, you work with this professor. Well, this professor worked on the behavior of snails at Barnstable Harbor. So that was my master's degree, and I'll tell you, it's not really interesting.
Not real exciting.
Not exciting. And I was on campus, and I met a woman who was, she was a physics major, so we had some science classes together. And I said, Ruth, what are you still doing on campus? And we had also had some dance classes together. She was a gymnast. So she said, well, I'm in this new program called Exercise Science. Says, you know, they're really looking for someone with science background to come in. Why don't you go over? I went over and I saw Ben Ritchie.
Sure. I had him for class.
Yeah, Ben Ritchie said, I think you should be in this program. So I entered the program, in the Ph.D. program in exercise science.
What year?
That would have been 73. 73.
I had just gone to Maryland
So we were
that year.
Funny.
I had been there from 69 on.
Wow, yeah.
And went there actually
So
to
we
study
just-
with Ben Ritchie, and ended up
Funny.
doing history. But
Yeah.
so what? Now you've had a lot of doctoral students. It seems to me. I mean, it seems like you've been a very
I've had
popular
doctoral
lab,
students, yes. We have a
and
good
a lot of
lab, yeah.
sponsorship, and. Now, how did you get involved with the American College of Sports Medicine?
Well, that was due to D. Eddington. When I was working with him, he had us submit an abstract, and actually he was going away, and I was the only, what I did with the abstract, I helped with the data collection, but my major role was I typed the abstract.
Okay.
And this was before computers,
Right.
before electric typewriters.
Sure.
So that I was typing one letter at a time
It was
to
exercise.
make sure I didn't make any mistakes. That was the first abstract I had, and it was in messenger RNA, changes with exercise. And I thought I wanted to go into the molecular level. But my career, when I first became a faculty, didn't allow me to pursue molecular studies, so that's how I got into the study of muscle strength, muscle fatigue, muscle soreness. But with ACSM, my first meeting was in 1976 in Washington, D.C. I believe it was 76.
Wow.
And I think there were only 2 or 3 simultaneous sessions at the time.
Yeah.
And I presented my dissertation research. And I think I went to every meeting except the one in Hawaii, which I couldn't afford.
I never knew they met in Hawaii.
Yes,
so.
I couldn't afford that one
Yeah.
as a young faculty, but I think I've met.
Now, I'm trying to remember when you were president. Oh, right
2000.
around 2000.
Yep.
Yeah. So were you on the board before that,
Yeah,
or how
yeah.
did you sort of work your way up through there?
I did, and it was very funny because after D. Eddington left, I really had no mentor. And I knew that there was American College of Sports Medicine, and we presented our research, but I didn't understand any committee structure. And I got a call from Carl Gisolfi. And he said, we'd like to nominate you for the board. And I said, what board? He said, the Board of Trustees. And I said, what is that?
Oh, okay.
And then he told me what it was. I said, well, that sounds okay. So I said yes, and I got elected, surprisingly. And that started it all. So it was, I remember that phone call from Carl so well because he's probably thinking, oh, what a terrible person to have asked. She knows nothing. We're going to put her on the board.
Yeah.
But it worked out well. And I've always thought that the reason I've been successful is when somebody asks, will you do this? I always say yes. So I'm always the first one to volunteer. And I volunteered to be on many committees. I loved being on committees. ACSM, if it wasn't for ACSM, I would not probably be in the field right now.
Wow.
Because I had no mentor. It was ACSM and the people I met at ACSM that were my mentors, that helped me with science, that helped me just in the enthusiasm for the area.
Did you sort of take over Eddington's lab then?
I did,
Okay.
yes, I did take over the lab. Right?
Where now? Where are you? You're not in Boyden anymore.
No, we
right?
moved to Topman.
Yeah, I don't even know that building.
That's the
so
other,
it's-
well, interestingly, Boyden is on one side of the campus, and Totman is as far away from Boyden as you could
Is
possibly
this what
get.
used to be the
The
women's gym?
yes, because
Okay,
Boyden was
I
the
know
men.
right where it is, sure.
Yep, and Totman
Yeah,
was the women's,
okay.
and since they wore shorts,
Yeah.
they had to be as far away from each other as possible
Yeah,
in the
okay.
early 50s.
So they must have remodeled that building.
Somewhat.
Somewhat.
My lab has been remodeled, yes. Yeah.
Because I remember going over there because they had dance classes
That's
over
right.
there.
Yep, they did.
And it was a long way across campus.
In fact, my first semester in the doctoral program, the graduate students received their teaching assistantship in physical education.
Yes, yeah.
And I went down to the person in charge of physical education, and she says, "What can you do?" And she says, she's listing all these sports, and I'm saying, no.
No.
She says, "You can't do anything?" I said, "Well, I was a dancer." She said, "Oh, okay, well, you could teach
There you
modern
go.
dance."
Yeah, there you
But
go.
she was just surprised that anyone in exercise science couldn't do any sports.
Yeah.
So,
So what, we're doing good. What do you see going on right now in the college? I mean, the people I've been talking to, they feel as though that the college is going a little too far in their social policy and not abandoning, but downplaying the science. And I've heard this discussion back and forth more this meeting, I think, than ever.
really?
And I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or not, but
Well-
it seems to me that you need both.
Yes. We actually started the discussion about science back in 1999, right about the time I was elected president. And one of my initiatives was to strengthen the science in the college. Not strengthen it, was strong, but to maintain it
Sure.
and foster it. And what has happened is we've lost some members who are in the basic sciences. And I think you're hearing that. But our foundation is in physical activity as it relates to health.
Yes.
And if we lose our foundation, then we might as well just be biology.
Yeah, what good is the
Right.
research if you don't have the
That's right.
application?
That's right.
So-
So we need to continue our foundation, which is we do research and education towards the health, fitness, and health. So that the science must be strong to do that, but
Yes.
also the message must be strong.
Right.
We have to have a direction. And I think now, over the last few years, with the NIH's initiatives to translational science and research, we should seize this opportunity,
Yeah.
because that's what we do.
And it's been a long time coming to get to that point.
Right. And when the molecular biologists in biology talk about translational research, what they think of is, I'm working on Drosophila, and I'm looking at this protein that could be important in Parkinson's. But that's not translational. Translational is to think about, all right, if we're working on this protein, where are we going eventually to be able to understand Parkinson's and to treat it? But they're not there, they're here. But ACSM, we can take an area and go from the basic to the applied. We need to be thoughtful about it. And I think I just came from a meeting where the Research Advisory Committee will, upon the vote of the board, be expanded to be a science integration committee. Research and science, to integrate the science so that we can best
Nice.
seize the opportunity to take this model of basic to
Oh,
applied.
wow. So that's
to
here
help.
at this.
Yes,
that-
just came from the
this
meeting.
just happened?
Yep, just happened.
Oh,
And it will
wow.
be voted
Okay.
on Saturday at the
At
Board
the
of
board
Trustees. Yep.
meeting?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a
And it's
major.
an excellent idea.
Yeah, it is. Very good.
It came
idea.
from the past President's Advisory
Uh-huh,
Committee. Yep.
Okay. So back to UMass, you're able to still work with your students and
I am. It's
keep
difficult.
that going? And
I keep Thursdays as my day to work with students. So that on Thursday I don't go over to Commonwealth College, the Honors College.
Yeah.
I work over with the students. We, of course, work by email a lot, so that my students know that we're in touch with email frequently.
Yeah.
In fact, we were at a meeting the other day, and I said, gee, I haven't gotten many emails. I guess it's because you're all here. And she says, the reason you haven't is because you're here too. So
Oh.
you're not emailing us, so we don't have to email you
right,
back.
right.
So, but yes, students have done well, and I'd say ACSM has been so good for the students, my students particularly, and all students. My students have had wonderful opportunities to present their work here. In fact, my student presented his work yesterday, and Ken Baldwin, who's one of our famous molecular biologists, got up and said to him after some questions that he had an elegant experiment.
Wow.
And now my student will be riding high forever.
Cloud nine.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
It is. So, and they've also received research grants. And even when they don't receive them, but they apply for them, it's so having that opportunity.
Just that experience.
And of course, when they get them, it's even better.
Yeah.
But that opportunity has been wonderful. So, and coming to the meeting for several of my students, this is their first or second meeting, and it's amazing. It just, they come back so excited.
Yeah, one person I interviewed said it was like a little league player going to a major league game.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
right.
Here's
that's
all
right.
of the people that I've heard about.
That's right.
All the heroes, they're there, and the names they've heard, and things like that. So.
And what we did in the lab, I had wanted to, I mentioned that when I was with D. Eddington, we did some messenger RNA work. That was really rudimentary science at the time. And I wanted to be in the molecular area, but we had no funding. And we were not supported in any way as young faculty to get funding. So I remember when we did muscle biopsies, we had slides and cover slips. Not only did I wash the slides to use them again, I washed the cover slips. And I would have them on paper towels in the lab, all laid out to dry so that I could reuse cover slips.
Yeah.
That's how I went to Vanderbilt to learn a fat cell technique, and they were throwing away these disposable pipettes.
Did you pick them up?
I said, can I take them? I'll wash them out. So we came back with about 100 disposable pipettes that we could wash. So we had no funding. So we really couldn't pursue the molecular aspects because it was just too expensive. It is now and it was then. So that's how we started in the muscle soreness and muscle function area. But then over the last 10 years, I developed my lab into a molecular lab. So I'm back where we started. And my students, they know much more than I do about the molecular. I feign interest in it, I mean, knowledge in it, but they actually know how to do this. So it's been very exciting.
Recruit good students.
Oh, yes.
Well, anyhow, I think, well, we're just out of time. So anyhow, thank you so much
you're welcome.
for
This has
coming
been fun.
and talking and sharing all those good things. I didn't know how close we came to
I guess.
to meeting each other back there. So thanks again.
You're welcome.